I say, hey, hey, I live for them Awaydays, feeling half cross.
Hey guys, I'm Si, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On the channel, we got podcasts, interviews, content on all sorts of subjects, live and recorded. We do a live show Monday, which is the Andy Campbell Football Show, features top guests from the football world. Then we have the Danny Batten Fight Show on a Wednesday, featuring guests from MMA and boxing, as well as Friday live again with the Andy Campbell Championship Show, talking all things championship. And then most Sundays we release another show, whether it be an episode of My Story, an episode of Unscripted Uncensored, or one of our other popular and fun series. There's something for everyone on all sorts of subjects, so check it out. And please subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. That's the most direct way to support the channel at the moment. And of course, you can get the audio versions of all the shows at your favourite podcasting radio app. And today I am talking a bit of everything, mainly clothing, and probably a bit of football and a bit of music, I would imagine. But my guest is... by the way, this is when I read this on your LinkedIn page, it was my favourite thing ever, but I'll discuss that now. Is designer and apparel engineer, Mr. Adi Wollaston. How are you, my friend?
Nice to see you, Si. Yep, all good, mate. All good.
Yeah, apparel engineer. When I saw that on your LinkedIn page a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I love that. That is like the perfect terminology. I was well happy with that. So as soon as we arranged to have you on, I was like, I'm having that on the nameplate straight away.
That's what it's all about, really, engineering stuff. So it seems the best way of describing it. I think people think designers are all pinning stuff up at the Paris catwalks and things, and most of the time it's not like that at all. You've got to know how to build stuff. It's not about selling pictures and things. It's about creating something of value, really, for people. So I've always liked it anyway. It seems a bit less highfalutin, I suppose. That's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, I guess, and like even I would be guilty of that. Like when you say like a designer, I think of like a sketchbook and then sketching, different designs and different things of different pieces of clothing, different items and whatnot. But of course, like you say, you've got to build the item as well. It's got to be achievable in terms of being able to do it as well. And if you can't do that, you're kind of stuck at just the drawing, I suppose.
Yeah.
So at the moment, you're working with a friend of the channel, Awayday Apparel, which we'll kind of get to how you became involved with them and stuff. But I've talked to Alan on the show before. He's been on a couple of shows, and we talk about them all the time. I'm really excited to see what the future brings for the brand, and we'll get to that in a minute. But what I like to do first is with all my guests, really, is wherever they're from, whether they be a footballer, a fighter, or a apparel engineer, is we do the Magnificent Seven. So all it is 7 quick questions, lets the viewer and the listener get a feel for your tastes or your interests, as it were.
Cool.
So, Adi Wollaston, the Magnificent Seven. Oasis or the Stone Roses?
Roses.
Good man.
Roses. I had the good fortune of being there at the beginning, so it's loyalty, but it's quality as well. I mean, it was a game changer when the Roses first came out. It was a different ball game. The music was just new. Yeah,
it just changed everything, didn't it? And I think even when, for people who discovered them afterwards, years later, it's still changed the way they were looking at music and how they felt about music years later. And I think just to a certain extent, it probably still does when they hear those the original albums. Next question was Noel or Liam Gallagher?
No. Nothing against Liam, just he's kind of the driving force against it. Liam's the personality, but Noel's the one that's kind of constructed it, really.
Yeah. Do you think they'll ever get back together? for a proper run?
Probably not. I'll be surprised, really, because they're both doing their own things now, really. They've both got their own... You don't want to go backwards, really, do you? You want to keep moving forwards.
I think the thing I did when Pretty Green went under, I wondered whether that might be a catalyst for them to sort of get back together. But when I start seeing kind of like Liam arguing with Noel's daughter and stuff on social media, I was like, yeah, that's probably it for that now.
I can't see it, really.
No, there's kind of like a line, and I think maybe he's probably gone over that line about a million times over the years, and they always seem to patch it up. But it's been a long time, that feud now, isn't it?
Never say never, but I'd be surprised, really. I'd be surprised. And sometimes it's better if things just stay where they were, really, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Oasis was special, and I do wonder whether if they did get back together, would you lose the kind of what made it special in the first place? It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because like the kind of fan or the enthusiast inside me wants to see them get back together, of course. But then equally, I'd like, hindsight's a great thing, innit? And like looking back, Oasis was very special, and I don't know if I want that to be ruined with a underwhelming run or an album or a tour or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Next question: Stone Island or CP Company?
Stone. CP was the first, so I've got to give credit where credit's due. But I think there was something special about Stoney that captured. It's just a different league, really. Something so different, and the amount of work that went in there, and it'd be impossible not to move there, really. And it's got to be Stoney. I think so.
And best TV show of all time? Not many to choose from.
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I don't watch loads and loads of TV, so it's a bit of a difficult one, really. I have to go back a long, long way, I think, to come up with something really good like that. What about recent ones?
Could be anything you want. Match of the day, if you want.
Match of the day will be a good one. It's always been there, really, so it's probably a good call. Man.
It's got to be up there.
Match of the day, maybe.
There we go. And this is such a broad question that it really puts you on the spot. Who is the greatest man that ever lived?
Nikola Tesla.
Good shout. See, most people go for like a kind of like a pop culture figure, like I don't know, an Eric Cantona or an Ian Brown or whoever. I like that. Nikola Tesla. Good shout. Got a very interesting story as well. Like apart from the obvious, like with his inventions and stuff, there's kind of like loads of rumors about like conspiracies and around his death and the CIA stealing all his experiments and that. So it's just all interesting stuff. But go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. He realised that electricity should be free. We wouldn't be paying for electricity. It's almost like Wi-Fi. It's absolutely everywhere, electricity. He was plugging light bulbs into the ground near his power generator, and they were just lighting, planting them in the ground like potatoes. And they were lighting up. All those bulbs were lighting up. I think any of those conspiracy theories, and let's face it, everything's a conspiracy theory until you start to see it turn out true. There's probably a lot in them, really. We'd all be on free electricity now. There wouldn't be anything. All the politics that goes on with it, I don't think there'd be anything at all like that anymore. I think the guy was a proper genius.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think as soon as the powers that be realised that they could make money from it, and like obviously the money was in controlling it rather than just giving it to everyone and whatnot. It's kind of like that's the end of it then, isn't it? From a free point of view. And I think that kind of
the end of him really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yes. So
question that though, a good shout really.
Yeah, I like it's one of my favourite questions, that is, because everybody's got a different answer, because everyone's, whether it be influenced or read about or just more familiar with, everyone's got like a different view of everything. So I like that question a lot.
Cool.
So the other thing I like to do with my guests is I like to take them back right to the start of their lives, really, and just kind of you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your upbringing and stuff, and then kind of how you got into being an apparel engineer, where it started.
Well, I grew up in Stockport, South Manchester, so it was quite a nice area. The area was Cheadle, so it was quite green belt and all that. But growing up in the 70s there, it was very different to how it is now. It's changed quite a lot. And I think probably I toyed with the idea of actually being an engineer, and that's why I put it in the tag there. Whether I had a teacher at school who used to work for the MOD, who used to bring old declassified blueprints, tanks and things like that in. My grandfather's was an electrical engineer, an acoustics engineer, so sort of in the blood a little bit, but it was all about fashion and clothing for me as well. So to try and put those two things together, I originally wanted to be a tailor.
Okay.
I was a teenage mod, into Northern Soul, into that, going to the footy, and right at that crossover point where it went from the kind of mod revival thing, the casual movement moved in, and listening to stuff like the Jam, and then Northern Soul was a big thing. It's a rite of passage, really, in the north. It's something everyone was sort of brought up with. But I wanted to train as a tailor. I wanted to be able to make suits, and I did a bit of apprenticeship work, learning how to press and how to sew bits and pieces of suits together. But when lads started coming back from Europe, and I'm a City fan, so we weren't in Europe in the 80s. We were a long way off that. So a lot of the lads from England, I knew, some of the lads from Liverpool and that started coming back with, it was Stone Island gear that just, it blew me away. Like military looking gear in purple, orange and yellow. And I just thought that's what I want to do. So I learned how to, I went and learned how to cut patterns. That was the next move on, really, how to actually build a garment. That seems to be the best. I've been able to draw. My mum taught me to draw before I could write, I think. So that side of it wasn't really a big deal. But to learn how to construct a pattern for a garment, that was the key to it. That was how to actually engineer a garment then. And then everyone laughed at us at the time. Everything was on St. Martin's, and people thought you wanted to be Christian Dior or Giacomo. So, but I was just determined to do it. Kept my head down, learned the craft and that. So that's where that side of it came from. And then looking at all the sort of footy lads, I got the whole mods into skinheads and suede heads, into casuals. I could see the whole line of it running through. So it was quite easy, really, to see how I could make that into something that I could really, really get my teeth into. I think I read a book, probably saw the movie, which is nothing to do with the book, Absolute Beginners. And the guy, the protagonist, actually said, when you're looking for something that you work, get something that you're going to enjoy doing. Because you spend most of your time at work. So you may as well actually enjoy it. I thought that made sense to me. It really made sense to us. I was single parent family and things like that. I was cutting patterns on the living room floor and the kitchen table, learning how to make jackets, how to cut the patterns from.
It's cool. So, like, not many, and the thing is, not many people get the opportunity to find a career that they genuinely enjoy. I would say probably 90% of the population end up with a job which they've got to have because it pays the bills, and like, I would say probably the majority of my mates, you kind of like, you speak to them and they're like, a lot of them have went into a job after school because they needed money, and some of them are still in that same job 20 years later, and they've kind of worked their way up and, got a, they're a bit higher up or whatever. But generally, because once you start paying bills and mortgages and rent and things, it's not as easy to then take a step back and go and do the thing you wanted to do. So I do think that, and that's what I try and sort of say to my kids as well, is find something not just that you're good at, find something that you genuinely enjoy, and work at it, and try and go for that. Because like you say, you're going to spend the majority of your life doing it. You may as well do something that you enjoy. I mean, I wish that 20 years ago I could have, or 20 years ago I'd thought about doing, it wouldn't have been podcasting then, but like some sort of radio or interviews or like that sort of thing, because I love it. And I've only, like, been doing it a year or so now, and I can't think of me doing anything else now. But it's like 25 years too late almost. But there we go. It is what it is, I suppose. So you said about like you've obviously you learned how to build garments from start to finish and construct them. What sort of time frame would you be looking at if you wanted to? This might be a really stupid question, by the way, so I apologise. But like, say you've drawn out your design of a jacket, for instance, and then you had the materials and whatever you need. What sort of time frame are you looking to, from start to finish, from designing it to building one jacket?
It depends on whether you can make it yourself. I mean, you're talking about the sampling process there, I assume, rather than the production.
Yeah.
The full turnaround, if you're working for a brand, for instance, for a firm, it's always 6 months. And it takes that because usually the design process is a combination of what you want to do and also what inspires you, for instance, fabrics and things like that, what you actually see. And then a lot of it is research and development.
Yeah.
And then you're making experiments, things like what colours it's going to be, the dyeing and things like that. But I think the thing that gets missed, and this is what gets missed now, this touches back to the conversation we had beforehand, is you don't get enough storytelling nowadays within the garment industry. And that's the bit which sometimes takes time. I mean, I'll can go through some of the firms and that later. I'll let you lead the way on that I've worked for. But a lot of them, you'll go on an inspiration trip, which just sounds like a bit of a laugh, really, but it's valuable because you're always working in a team. So you're always going in. In there with a group of people, and you all need to be on the same page. You've all got to get onto that same page, and a brand will have a story. For instance, I worked at Timberland, so everyone knows what Timberland's about. They know where they came from. It was all based originally around the yellow boot and things. When you're doing the apparel side of it, you've got to try and translate that story into the collections that you're doing, and then you've got to make it relevant for each season. So that start of it kind of dictates how long everything's going to take. Getting fabrics, getting things developed, and even designing fabrics. If you don't get exactly what you're looking for, you want to personalise it. You want to start bringing things like organic cottons in there, recycled stuff. Sometimes you have to build that yourself.
Yeah.
So you've got to work with another department, people who are experts on textiles, to take it through to that level. So 6 months is always the time to actually produce a collection from when you start. But then you've got another 6 months before it will go in the shop. So you've got to think a year in advance, always.
So can that be like frustrating as a designer that you that it can take like a year from your idea maybe and kind of your first semblances of the idea and the project to actually being the finished product and on the shelf? Or do you enjoy the journey of that 12 months of doing the sampling and the mixing with the different, whether it's the textiles people and the finding the right material which matches your vision for the garment?
There's a little bit of both, really. But the 6 months, once you hand it over to production, really, apart from garments coming back for you to check the quality, check the fit, and approving colours and things like that, you're not really involved in it then. You've moved on to something else, so it goes to a production department. So that 6 months, really, I find it quite enjoyable. That's the whole engineering side of it. It's only once it goes into sales, it gets handed over to the money men, and it just becomes a number, price, and how many have sold, and things get cancelled. Cancellations and things are frustrating. But the longer you're in the business, I mean, I've been doing this for over 30 years now, so it's a long, long time. You do get used to it. You get less precious about the garments that you've done.
Okay.
But you don't want people to chop away at it too much. You know, the development process should be a part of putting something of value in there. Putting something that people are actually. I'm still very much. I know it sounds a bit of a cliche, but I'm very much interested in what people are going to get, what they're paying their money for. Really. It needs to be something of value. You don't just do something with a brand on it or sticking zips or buttons and things where they don't need to be. And you get a process as well where you kind of you over-engineer stuff sometimes, but you know you're doing it. You want to strip things back, and then you'll get different people in the company. No, don't take that off, because you think it's going to be a little bit overcooked there. It's not only going to be expensive, but there's going to be too much. It's like a science project then.
Yeah.
To see the value of what you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
It can get frustrating, but that actual building garments and building the collections, really, that's the fun part of it, really.
It sounds like a special experience, because I would imagine it's quite fulfilling, not just along the way, but when it's on the shelf and it's finished product, being able to look back over that 12 months or so, and looking back at the original designs in a book or on paper or whatever it may be, that's got to be a satisfying process to have built something from start to finish, and obviously see the finished article. Have you got like a favourite garment that you've designed in those 30 years?
Again, that's another tough one. That with 30 years, I mean, I've got a portfolio like a library. It's huge.
I bet, yeah.
You just get used to it. But there's a few of the bits that I did for Boneville and Massimo. There was a lot of stuff there. I mean, Boneville, full stop. I can talk into that a bit more, but that was that was a dream, really. To be able to work with something, that was one of the brands that inspired me to do this. The whole, especially the Navy Arctic stuff that was coming out in the 80s. I was buying into that at the time. So then to be given that brand, it's been dormant for 20 years, and be asked, can you redevelop it and do something with it? That's probably, that was probably the greatest thing. I mean, there's some garments, there's one behind us here on the mannequin that I used, which was a limited edition I did for Master. That's saying Science Project. That collection, the 2014 white label collection, was really good fun to do, because it was engineered in a way that I wanted to make it authentic performance clothing, but I didn't want to to a sportswear label, not like North Face or Patagonia or something like that. I wanted it to stay true to what it started as, and bring all that experience of working with all these performance labels I'd worked with, and actually put it into a garment that was top to toe designed, going out and working with the factories, going out to China and working with people like that, really good factories as well. So that's perhaps, you're always more interested in your most recent stuff. You're always more, that's always the stuff that you think, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So you mentioned Boneville and Marstrom. What did you, so before you get to that point in your kind of career, what was your first job in clothing once you'd sort of gone from sort of school to what? Where do we go from there?
Well, it took me a few years really to actually get in somewhere, because I didn't have a degree or anything. I was self-taught predominantly.
Okay.
And all the
Wow.
companies were completely self-taught. So I'd learned pattern cutting, creative pattern cutting. So your normal pattern cutters will do something just for production. The designers create it, they pass it over to you, and you have to interpret their ideas. So I'd learned pattern cutting then. And the first firm that I worked for was a little independent label in Manchester called The Works. They were doing very kind of clubby stuff. It was we used to outfit what's his name, Chris Evans on Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, did all his long tartan coats, and the trousers that he wore. That was really good fun because it was very small. We were producing stuff, cutting the patterns up in the design studio, sending them out to different manufacturers, then going to shows and people buy something and sending stuff to people like Take That and everything as well. And it was very affordable. It was quite a small operation. It was all very clicky, bit wild, a lot of party in there as well. It was that was during the real heady days, tail end of the hacienda, when cream was absolutely huge, and we'd just be off at all those places, guest lists everywhere, that kind of thing. And then after that, I did a couple of little bits and pieces of working for people in Manchester, but the industry was very small then. I got headhunted by Ted Bakers. Moved out to London. Didn't stay that long. I only stayed 6 months. I was just working on jersey stuff, and it wasn't really me, to be honest. I wanted to get into proper outerwear. And then I worked for Hope and Glory. Do you remember Hope and Glory?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Got into that right at the start of that whole kind of covert coat, smart city kind of shirt, that sort of lock stock kind of look.
Yeah.
And then Fire Trap after that, when it was still privately owned before it went to Mike Ashley.
Yeah, before Mr. Ashley took over, I was partial to a bit of Fire Trap, but
that stuff. That was when another firm that's just put into bankruptcy, I think. G-Star Diesel, huge then. So they were the competition. Trying to do things. I had the good fortune then of looking after Special Projects, which was a sort of epilogue to the season, prologue to the season, and then designing a lot of the outerwear as a part of it.
Okay.
Then after that, it was Timberland. I went there as head of outerwear.
Massive Timberland.
In terms of being really looked after by a company, Timberland were great. It's owned by VF Corporation now, but at the time it was owned by the guy Jeff Schwartz. That was the first time I went proper international, like club class flights out to China, staying there, nice hotel, stayed in the peninsula there.
What was that like as an experience to kind of, start traveling around with as a member of the Timberland team? Timberland, the massive worldwide. Like, I'm assuming you look back fondly on those times, just as part of your own story and your life. But what was that like at the time?
Oh, it was brilliant. It really was. It was great. Really, really good. To be fair to them as well, at the time, they were genuinely trying to do something, doing things like organics. They worked with Care International, making sure that factory standards and that were good. The first thing we were told was try and get organic, try and get recycled. Obviously, there's a price limit where it's going to bottom out, where you have to draw a line under it. But generally speaking, they tried to put stuff together. We had to do 40 hours of charity work a year. That just came with the company. Like I said, if they sent you out to Hong Kong to go and work somewhere, you went club class, you stayed in a decent hotel. They wanted you to go and work there straight away. So you go there for a week, but you literally start working when you landed.
Okay.
So it was
quite
nice
the experience.
And it was a great crew. Really, really good crew of lads. Still a lot of good friends there as well.
So it's interesting. So what year, what sort of, not necessarily like to the exact year, but what sort of period are we talking there?
That's 2007 to end of 2009.
Yeah, so I was Timberland were a little bit probably ahead of their time then in terms of looking at recyclable, products and factory conditions and things like that, because like I know a lot of places these days kind of try and use things like recyclable and that type of fabric or materials as a selling point. But it sounds as if Timberland were on that train quite early.
Yeah, they got on very, very quick. Really, really quick. That was something that, and we tried to build it as well. Tried to make sure there was one of the jackets. This was another favourite actually. One of them, I did a kind of lumber jacket kind of thing, proper old New England check, and that was all recycled wool. That was all made from stuff that had been made before and then rewoven and things like that. So that was another challenge to engineering products, to try and do it like that and make it as cost effective, but still working with the right sort of people, working with the right factories, and make it as organic as possible and try and do something with it. That's something that when they started it, I could take that any brand that I've worked with since, because after Timberland I've been freelance, so I've worked for myself, even doing some of the other brands and that I've worked from on a freelance basis, and I've quite a lot of different clients after that. But that's
so go on.
They were ahead of the game there, very ahead.
So you at Timberland, where did you go from there?
After that, I went freelance. So the first job I did after Timberland was Quicksilver over in France. That again, really nice experience. I worked from home most of the time remotely, and then every other week I'd go out to Saint-Jean-de-Luz in the south of France, just south of Biarritz, and go and work with them for 3 or 4 days. I'd get put up in a hotel and that there, and it was like being James Bond. They'd send the flight booking, they'd send the hotel booking, they'd send a car booking so I could drive around there. So that was quite cool. That was a nice thing to work on. I just did 6 months there. Got brought in to do a collection, a capsule collection for them. So that was enjoyable. And then after that, it starts to pick up. Then I worked for an agency based in London and ended up working with North Face. I worked with Barracuda. Did the last UK collection for Barracuda before it went to Italy. Killer Loop, which was that was a good learning experience. They were really excited about trying to do something. A lot of what's flavoured the work that I've done since.
So Killer Loop, I'm not as familiar with them. What sort of stuff do they do?
Well, the Killer Loop thing started as I think that started as a surf brand, really.
Yeah.
But they wanted to do something geared more towards snow. So it was like extreme sports. The idea of it, the story behind it, was to do something with guys who were snowboarding and doing extreme skiing. But then they were filming them stuff, people taking GoPros with them and stuff. And actual professional photographers that snowboarded as well. So there was quite a lot of story to get into. Strangely enough, I missed the Roses at Heaton Park working on that collection. Strangely. One of the small disappointments of it, well, you've got tight deadlines. A lot of the time when you're doing freelance, if you've got a lot of experience, you're either brand building or you're firefighting, which means basically stuff that hasn't worked out for them. They need a collection and they need you to come in and make it right. So that's kind of what happens with that sort of thing. So your deadlines are really tight for it. So you can be working like till midnight every night.
I'd imagine there's quite a lot of pressure involved in that sort of thing then, where you're on a lot of deadlines and long days, is it?
Absolutely. That's where the pattern cutting comes in. That's where if a factory comes back and they can't make something, you need to be able to tell them how to make it. You need to be able to show that. And sometimes cut the pattern for them and send it out to the factory. Otherwise, they've got to make a sample, send it back to you. You have to make all the comments on it, get it fitted. It lengthens the process. If you can cut a pattern for people, that's it. You know how to make the actual garment yourself.
Yeah, and I suppose that's I got to say, like, I find it really impressive. Like, not just that you can design the clothes, but that you can, you can build it from effectively from scratch. And like I say, you're able to, if there's any issues, you can tell the factory exactly where they need to go or what they're doing wrong, or what they need to do. So how did you, or how did the kind of the Boneville job come up? How did that opportunity come about for you? Did they spot something, some sort of your work? Was there a particular thing which had caught their eye, or did you have contacts there already?
It came through a friend that I've worked with at Timberland, a good mate of mine, he's a garment tech. So his part of the process normally is to actually build the garment with you.
Okay.
And we work together. I know him through the Northern Soul scene, really. We were friends anyway. And he got brought in to do some garment tech work for Master. And when he went and had a meeting with them, they were looking to rebuild the Boneville label. The guy that owned it, very friendly with Lorenzo and with the family, and he bought the actual label off them. And he wanted to make it into something special. I mean, he tried a couple of different people, and that. I won't go into names and that. A couple with their own labels. But it wasn't working out, really. It wasn't what he wanted. And I think this is where this goes right back to the starting point, that if you're going to do a label that's been started by someone like Massimo Osti, if you're gonna dip into that, you can't just replicate what he did. You've got to build on the actual work that he put in. Try and get into the mind of him. Try and at least be on the same page, and try to be an engineer of garments. Try and create something that's got utility value, that's got something different about it, really.
Yeah.
And
So
that's how that came about.
I just wanted to kind of circle back a little bit, just for if there's anyone who's watching this, and maybe you mentioned Lorenzo, and then you mentioned Massimo Osti, sorry. Just for the people who are not aware, who are those two gentlemen?
Well, Massimo Osti was the brains behind CP Company, Stone Island, Boneville, of course.
Yeah.
And onto Left Hand, ST95. And a lot of the work that he put in is what's completely inspired. Like, he was the first person that did garment dyeing. He was the first person, I think, that really tried to get genuine utility garments, military, workwear, things like that, and make them accessible to people, to actually look at the way a lining's worn in something and be able to change it. Lorenzo's his son.
Yeah.
And he looks after, unfortunately, Massimo passed away in 2006.
Yes.
But Lorenzo keeps hold of the archive there, and he's still involved. He's got a presidential position at CP Company now. But he'd always wanted to keep that. And like his father, he's a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of people don't know about Massimo was he's a graphic designer. It was about colour, graphics, things like that. And then he got the right people around him to try and create something that was just new, totally new. That's what inspired me to go from being a tailor and a pattern cutter into actually doing what I do now. Yeah. That was a dream. I was looking at buying Lomo Vogue and things like that in the 80s and seeing all these clothes about. And it was just so far away. So to be given the chance to get to something like Boneville, but Lorenzo was still involved in it as well. I had the good fortune of going over to the archive. I met Lorenzo in 2013. Wow. And he came to view the Boneville collection because it was going to be the big relaunch. And to be honest, in fact, I should have retired there and then. He actually said to me, "This is brilliant. This is building on my dad's work, and some of it has taken it on and done it better."
Wow.
It was like the detachable linings and things like that.
Yeah.
A system for Boneville. I've always been interested in the end consumer being active in the garments, which is obviously leading to Awayday Apparel off that. But I've always wanted people to be able to look at it and decide how they wear it, rather than just buy something, pay the money for it, stick a badge on it, and then off you go.
Yeah.
So I put together a system for that where everything was modular. So different garments would fit inside other ones, but they could be worn on their own. I mean, having worked for Timberland where everything was 3-in-1s and it was very performance, and with the North Face. This was something that was happening for proper performance wear, people going hiking and skiing. But no one had sort of come into the idea really at the time of being able to take a jacket, say like a fleecy jacket, something like this one. I don't know whether you can see that.
You can't. It's a bit high. You'd have to bring it down lower. Yeah, now you can just about see it. Yeah.
But basically, something that you could wear a jersey, a sweatshirt,
Yeah.
and fasten it into a coat that you could wear in summer, and suddenly you've got a winter garment.
Yeah, of course.
That was the idea, and then the consumer, the customer at the end, they're deciding which one they put inside there, and they can keep adding to it. If you're going to make something, this is one of the problems with disposable clothing. You've got to make something well if you're going to charge money for it. You've got to make something that's really good. But that means that it's going to last for season after season after season. So you've got to create an idea where people can build something onto it. They can put their own hood on it, and it will fit onto 10 different jackets. That was the idea of doing a modular system. And I think that's what Lorenzo was touching on. When he liked the idea that people could just put different jackets inside other ones. It would make a heavy coat, make a small one. You could wear something in spring, summer, put another jacket inside, and then you could go out in the Arctic with it. And that was what I tried to do with Boneville.
But that's so unique, isn't it? You know, that's just such a. I can see why he would be impressed by that, and like you said, he was impressed by the fact that you were not only taking on his father's. I've forgotten the word, but what his father had already built and what he had, what they'd already built as a family, and you taking it on and put your own twist on it and your own thing and take it on further. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, like looking back, that just has to be so special for you personally and professionally to be able to look back on that and think, not only did I have this amazing opportunity, which you earned, to work with this amazing company, with these amazing people who've changed the game in terms of clothes, like to me, like Stone Island and CP Company, they're still the cream of the crop. They changed my whole outlook on clothes and what I wore when I discovered Stone Island jackets. And even now, to this day, I've got a ridiculous amount of coats, as my wife tells me. But nine times out of 10, I will always go to my Stone Island coats, always. And it's just the way it is. And do you know what? Out of all the coats I've had, like Prada or Weekend Defender or Stone Island ones, Burberry ones, the Stone Island ones always last the longest. They always, I find them to be the best quality, the most durable, and I'm a firm believer, like especially I think it's even more so since I've had kids, that you should get what you pay for. So like if you're going to spend 400 or 500 quid on a coat, like let's not make it so it rips when you just lift an arm or something the first day of getting it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm all for quality and how it looks and everything, but maybe I've become a bit more practical since I've had kids and I've got a bit older, I don't know. But yeah.
A lot of the ideas that came out of Osti's studio, they've just been adapted by everyone. I mean, sportswear now is very different. Like the Italians in those days called what Stone Island were doing, they called it sportswear. I've always thought sportswear literally it's like Nike, Adidas.
Yeah, that's what I would think of it as well.
Qualified sportswear. They see that kind of casual clothing, what we might call terrace wear or casual clothing. I've always felt that a bit of a Marmite expression, really. It's a bit beige, isn't it? Casual wear, it's a bit man at C&A, really. But
yeah,
what came out of there now has just been adapted by the industry. And all the brands, like you mentioned, a few brands there, they do decent enough stuff. It's nice enough. But what's the story behind it? What's real? Like nowadays, the landscape of clothing, I can understand this changing a lot from online stuff. It's all about sweatshirts and just a brand. And that's it. It can be nice, decent quality and stuff, but has it got something in there that's special? Has it got something other than the brand? I mean, like Stoney and CP Company, I've got decades of heritage, research, development. They've got an enormous operation behind them to make things like that happen. And a lot of what we look at now is the result of that, and also a bit of nostalgia. They've created a story now that just fulfills itself. Whereas a lot of brands, and I don't want to slag all the brands off. If you make nice clothes, you make nice clothes. At the end of the day, it's what you wear when you go out. But for me, it's been more about being able to let the end customer be involved in it and have a part of it, because it goes to the men in suits. Like, make no mistake, everyone has to answer to someone. There's always going to be a management firm up there. But a lot of the people that own businesses now are investors, they're financial investors. They've not got a passion for the clothing. They realise that it's a huge industry, and the industry starts to take over the creativity. And I think that's something that's what led me to work with Alan. He has a vision about keeping something within the people that are interested in that clothing, within the people that are passionate about it. Whether it's most people it's trainers and jackets, really, isn't it? That's what most guys' wardrobe is, trainers and jackets. You buy jeans based on the fit that you like. You'll buy, you might have a standard place for t-shirts and sweats that you go for, or something catches your eye. But most of the time for me, it's jackets. I'm not a trainer designer. I've got a few pairs of trainers, but I'm more of a boot wearer. A bit of the old mod still left in those days. But they don't really have the passion about it. It's looking at something that happened before, rather than actually creating something that's a bit more new generation. It needs to appeal to people, and it needs to have something a little bit more about it. The industry's got a chance of being a little bit more flexible in terms of seasons and things like that. But there are opportunities now. I mean, I said 6 months for a brand to do a collection, but there's no reason why it can't be divided up a little bit cleverer. And rather than it just being something that has to make an investor a load of money, to make something that appeals to everyone and they can be a part of. And I think something at the moment, it's almost like football clubs. You look at a club like Barcelona, enormously successful club, but it's owned by the fans. Really, the fans are stakeholders in that club. Yeah. And that's why it's probably everyone's second team. Apart from Real Madrid fans, it's hard to find someone that doesn't like a club like that. And the club just could become the same. There's opportunities in that there. And the tail always ends up like a dot. So you end up producing a range, beautiful story, lots going on there, and then it just gets stripped down to some sweatshirts, some t-shirts, one jacket. It doesn't really say anything about it. And I got fed up with that, really. I think I've got a bit fed up with doing that, where it just becomes it's just another load of clothing, and then Black Friday will come up and it all goes into sale, and people will wait for the sale then as well because they know it's coming.
Yeah, and I think, like, for instance, if you look at like CP Company jackets with the goggles on the hood, that's just so unique that it just attracts the eye, and people who've got a certain kind of taste in clothing, if you want to call it terrace wear, whatever you would like to call it is, but it's that style, and where Stone Island jackets, Adidas trainers, those, everyone's got, once you find a place, so these days it's more of an online shop or store, but once you find a place which sells the clothing and the designers that you like, 9 times out of 10 you're always going to go back to that same one, or at least I do. Like, I will have a little shop around, but generally if I find somewhere which sells the stuff that I like at a decent price, handily, then I'll always go back to that one. But I like clothes which stand out, and you've used the term a couple of times about clothing and designs having a story behind them. So whether it's your CP Company with the goggles and your Stone Island stuff, even going back as far as like the Burberry checks and the Aquascutum checks, these are like iconic classic designs which people instantly know what it is. Instantly, like, he doesn't take a second glance. People know what it is. Do you think, like, there's something within when we get to a day? Well, we'll move on to Awayday Apparel now, because there is something which I wanted to discuss with you, which I know Alan's talked about before, which is the tribute to Peter Whittingham in the pocket. I've forgotten the name. I think, was it a PW7 pocket or something like that? But
yeah. That's a part of the ongoing development. I mean, the idea, just to move on to Awayday Apparel.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you what then. Before we go there, how did you become involved with Awayday Apparel? Like, how did you two guys come together?
It came through a friend off one of the Blackwood lads that goes out soul scene. My wife DJs Rare Soul, travelled all over the place, and we've been away a couple of times with Jay and Robert from Blackwood, and got to know them and things, talking about it. And Jay's obviously a good friend of Alan's, got a lot of history going out around Europe and that, watching the team and stuff. And it was Jay posting something up on Facebook about Awayday Apparel, and I said, "Oh, if you need to do any outerwear, let me know." And it's been a couple of years since we first made contact, and Alan's built this up as, to be honest, the stories he's already built up. We all know what Awayday Apparel means.
Yeah,
but
of course.
An actual story for a brand. The two words themselves, apparel, obviously, is clothing. But what do you need for an away day? What's it all about to everyone? The Millie that you mentioned before, that's a prime example. You don't need another jacket with you, do you?
No.
So it was through Jay, and then Alan and I. We finally met up last summer. It was, and talked about doing some bits and pieces. I had a contract on with someone else, and to be honest, I know it sounds very obvious after everything we've been talking about, but to actually focus on doing outerwear and building a story around the outerwear, it's a full-time job. It takes a long time to actually get involved in that and to make it work. So we've been talking, trying different ideas. I've got a little bit involved in some of the graphics on the tees, but it's researching the manufacturer, getting the right kind of fabric, putting a strategy down that's going to be a price point, things like that. They're all a big part of it, really. They need to happen right at the start. It's a big jump up going from sort of t-shirts and sweats into doing stuff that's really exciting. There was a few things that I'd little experiments that I tried on other garments and things, which is when the Whittingham pocket came out of. Still under wraps at the moment, and still in the R&D part of it, but we wanted to make something with it that's not only kept within the football community, kept out of the hands of the suits and that, so it doesn't just become a brand carrier.
Yeah.
Like that, but something where the lads that are actually going on away days, they've got something that they want to wear. It's exciting. It does the job for them, and that's kind of where it started to move forward. And I've just come back from Kefili as well. So
I was going to say
chat about where we can take it and what the next steps might be. Hence doing the show and that as well, and the rest of the guys.
So it's like, I say to Alan all the time, like, Awayday Apparel is really special, to me, because it's my mate's brand, and we kind of, over the last year where the podcast has been doing well, his Awayday Apparel has been going well, and we've been kind of interlinked alongside each other as we've been, helping each other out and whatnot. But I'm really excited to really see where the brand goes and the plans for it. Are you able to kind of discuss where you see it, where you guys see it going, and what your vision is really for the future?
Well, the next thing, really, I mean, I'm at an opportunity at the moment where I'm out of work at the minute, so I'm plugging myself a little bit later, a little bit further down the line on that. But to make it happen, we need to put a collection together. It doesn't need to be huge, doesn't need to go everywhere, but a little storytelling idea about what Awayday Apparel means. We've got the logo, we've got the imagery, everything's all there. there's already a lot of people interested, and that's all over Europe as well. I know that the lads at Lazio and Antwerp, as well as a lot of British lads and that, all around the country, are really, really enthusiastic and wanted to work.
Yeah.
I want something that's going to be a little bit more authentic. So it's now we're at the time where we want to take it to the engineering stage and actually create something that something of value, something that the guys are all a part of, that they're interested in, and that actually does what all those clothes that we've been talking about, whether it's Stone, ECP, something that actually does that. And it's about creating a level of excitement. This is what I mean by storytelling. You want something that's going to have utility value. You want a pocket that's going to do something for you.
Yeah.
It's not just having just another jacket with a logo on. It's fine, but it'd be nice to have something that's a lot more than that, that's got a lot more depth, that's a lot more value for people. When I say value, obviously we live in a day where people like Primark and running the high street. I'm talking about something that's actually, it's got an intrinsic value to it. So
Yes.
it's got an authenticity about it, and something that's coming from people that actually are football lads. You know, that want to wear clothing, not just lads that go to the match, but people that are following that actual scene, that whole group. And that's all across Europe. It doesn't matter where you go. There's going to be groups of lads who want really top-class quality product that's well cut, really nice fabric, but there's something a bit different about it.
Yeah, people want something which is unique, doesn't it? They and I think as well is people do like to, if they find something which they enjoy, or which they like, whether it's a TV show, a podcast, a radio show, a band, a clothing brand, and if they discover it and they discover it when it's on its way up, they like to be a part of the journey. So as well as liking having something unique and something which stands out and something which is good quality, they also like being on the journey on the way up. As things get popular, people by human nature like to be almost like I was there at the start sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think like I've watched Awayday Apparel over the last year really, really grow and see, I've seen the amount of stuff he's selling, the amount of people contacting him, and footballers, wearing the t-shirts and things like this. And I'm excited for him. So Lord knows how you guys must feel even more excited, because you obviously have got, on top of that, you've also got the what you two are discussing about, we're going to go in this direction and we're going to go in that direction. So you've got like both sides of the excitement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what you said there about people wanting to be on the journey is exactly the idea about it. Everyone gets involved in something at the start. When you call in an investor, it loses the flavour. It loses that sort of flavour. It loses the authenticity. And all of a sudden, everyone that the brand was designed for and that were there at the start, they get shut out of it. They get completely closed out of it. Everyone wants to be kind of a stakeholder. The idea for me for something like Awayday Apparel is to keep what Alan started and keep everyone as stakeholders of it. Let them be a part of the brand. That means interaction, taking people through the engineering process, that kind of thing. That's what interests me about it. It's easy to just buy stuff from a different brand, but to actually be a part of it and a part of, I hate to say the journey, but to be a part of that journey.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But that's what it is. It is a journey, because it's going from, A to B, if you like, and it's getting on board as it goes along. And I think there's something to be said for that. I really do. And like, even with, like, just quickly going back like to the podcast, there's a couple of, well, there's more than a couple, but there's a few guys who watch the football show who will comment every now and again, and we're on, I think, overall we're on about episode 230 odd, I think was yesterday's episode, but they were there on episode like 2 and 3, and if you look back in the comments, they're in there, and they every now and again they like to just sort of say, we were here on episodes 3 or 4, and I think they enjoy that aspect of it as well, of they've watched it grow and watched it develop and watched it change and evolve into different ideas and different things and trying different things. I think there's definitely something to be said for that.
I think it's essential, to be honest. It's things like this they need people to support it. They need people.
Yes.
It's a big undertaking to go from the idea of putting a brand together and then turning it into something that's going to appeal to everyone that they're still a part of. It is a big undertaking to actually do it. I mean, the ideal for something like this I'd love to have it all made in the UK.
Of course.
Do stuff, work with guys in the UK. Certainly in Europe initially, that's going to be the starting point anyway, really. But it'd be wonderful to actually to put something back into it and to keep it here within what we're trying to do with it. I mean, it'd be great to be able to get stuff made over in Wales.
Of course, it
would. There was an old industry there. People used to make stuff there.
It was a Burberry factory there, wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that. Alan and I were talking about it when I was over in Wales. The idea to actually keep it within people's within a fan base and make it almost like get people involved, almost like season tickets. That's what you do with football. Football's a great analogy for it, and it's also it's the heart and soul of why we're doing that. That's where this type of clothing. I hate giving things titles and things because then it becomes something, you know.
Yeah.
But that whole casual movement that started in the late 70s, really, but really took off in the 80s and then into the 90s of everyone wearing initially sportswear, a lot of sportswear. Guys started doing their own thing, flared jeans, cutting your coats up the side and that, the whole trade movement. And then buying things like Millies and things like that.
Yeah.
All those garments, that's the heritage of it. That's what's built on it. But you don't want to just look backwards. You want to be able to say, what's the next step? What about the younger lads that are trying to buy into those garments that maybe don't realise it? You know, they don't realise what its full heritage was, what the full story is. It's to make sure that that's there for them. It's served on the plate and it stays there, that they can be interactive in it, they can be a part of it. So it'd be wonderful to make it be UK. Go on,
yeah. I was going to say, I've discussed with Alan a couple of times about, a couple of things really. First of all, going back to something you said about the massive, like the undertaking of creating a brand, whatever the brand is, it is a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of stress. But I would say there's nothing more satisfying I've discovered in the last year or so, that taking something from an idea to like something just knocking around in your head, oh, I'd like to do that, to then it being a thing which people are invested in, is about as satisfying a thing as I've ever had. And that's just speaking from a personal point of view. And I'm not like the podcast channel and stuff, it's not massive. It's growing, and I'm happy with the growth and where it is. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be, which is sometimes a bit overwhelming in some aspects of it because it's unexpected. But I'm also I can look back and think, wow, it was an idea, and I've turned it into this. No one can take that away from me. And then there's all different aspects to it, and I've completely lost the second part of my point. I can't remember what I was going to say now, but I'm sure it was a cracking point nonetheless. It was probably it would have been an absolute cracker. I can't remember what it was though.
It is satisfying though once you can look back and you put something together. The hard bit with clothing is you've actually got to make something. People have got to be able to buy it.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes the big undertaking. It takes a lot of work anyway. But it also takes a lot of finance. None of us are millionaires. This is something where if we're going to be able to do this, I need to be able to get the support of the guys out there. I mean, I'm looking at the moment. I'm going to be doing Patreon for it, kind of like
idea.
Something like that, to make sure we can do it. As I said, I'm out of work at the moment, so like a lot of people, I'm sure, of COVID and stuff. But now's an opportunity to make this actually happen. Because otherwise, I mean, although I'm a Manchester lad, I'm based in London, which is short of actually owning a football club. There's no better way than to see your money just disappear. It's ridiculous. So I'd like it to stay within the community, within the football community, within all the lads that are already supporting it. But it's going to need some support to make it happen. And that means doing something like Patreon. That I think as well, opportunities like that stops you having to go to an investor.
Yeah.
What always happens with brands is eventually you start with something great. Master, I think, started, the lad that started it done that. It was about 8 jackets.
Wow.
Now when you go into stores, if you were to go to any of the big chains, flannels, any of the big guys that are doing stuff, most of what you'll see there will be sweatshirts, polos, tees, because they're already committed to buying off people. And they have spreadsheets to do this. It's all about number crunching and finance. It takes away from what the garment is. So you'll get big players like Stoney and CP that they've got huge marketing behind them. It's a huge global story. If we're going to make it happen, then it's going to need some kind of support. But I'd like it to stay like that, and to stay within the same group of lads that are interested in it, and get it started like that, and actually take it to the next level. Keep it within the hands of people who actually value the product that's going there, to buy into the idea and take them through the engineering process. Let them be a part of it. Membership, where it becomes something where you've got names inside jackets, all the names on the website. It means that something like Awayday Apparel, rather than being a part of some big investment company, it's actually just it's all the guys that are a part of it that are making it happen. It means that I personally can deliver the kind of product that they want to them on a regular basis, because it's not something that you can do. You can't do it like a hobby. It's not a part-time job. The amount of time I try to do my own thing, working for people, you think, do some work at the weekend. It doesn't happen. You've got to get out to the factories, you've got to find them, you've got to source fabric, you've got to be able to, you've got to check the quality of the gear all the time, right the way through the process as well, to make sure. Doing experiments with fabric dyeing. That was one of the things that really appealed about Osti.
Yeah.
That whole garment dye, different fabrics layered up and using different dye techniques and things to be able to do it. To be able to take some old army garment, look at what they did with the pocket. Again, the Millet's got that. The envelope pockets on there. They've all come from a Swiss army garment. Go to a second-hand army store, you'll find camo, things like that. You'll find those pockets there, but they've been deconstructed and reworked and things like that, put into really fantastic technical fabrics. I want to be able to do that with Awayday Apparel and turn it into that. Have little stories of things that have got a bit of excitement about them. The guys that are already supporting the brand, they feel a part of that as well. It's for them, really.
Yeah, and thing is, mate, like I can feel your optimism and your excitement around it as you're talking about it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that rubs off on people is when you're talking about something and when you're so passionate about something and you believe and you can see where you want to take it, that it rubs off on people very quickly. That does. So, like a couple of things I was going to say, just quickly circling back to my coats. One of my favourite coats is actually not a designer coat. It's I went to Germany, I think in about just year 2002 or something. I went to Germany and we went to a military surplus store and I bought this like an authentic green parka, like a proper military parka, and the inside comes out, like you were discussing earlier about the modulars and that. It comes out, and it's still to this day is my favourite coat. Even beats my Stone Island coats, because it's got the look and it's got the colour which I really like, and it's interesting. Say again, sorry.
Like an olive green.
Yeah, that's the one. And it's but it's just just a legitimate military coat which I got from an army surplus store. It's just one of those things. And the other thing I was going to say about Patreon is what Patreon does is it can create this kind of like they used to talk about Fergie creating this kind of siege mentality where with his squads, where it was everyone else was against us, everyone's against us, the media is against us, the commentators are against us, the fans are against, everyone hates us, it's all about just us, we're together. And I think what Patreon can do is can create that almost exclusivity among the people who support the brand, who are going to support the brand anyway, because they're buying the stuff because they want to support it for whatever reason. So if you can create different reward systems within Patreon, they're most likely going to do that anyway because they were going to support it, and it makes them feel a part of it as they're going along. And then if you've got like one of the higher rewards being, your name will be on the inside of the jacket, which is a limited edition, there's only going to be X amount made, that's something special which can never be taken away, and I think there's something to be said. I think Patreon is really interesting to me from a podcasting point of view as well. I think probably what I've said from the start, at some point down the road, I'll probably start creating some Patreon exclusive podcasts, because the amount of time and the equipment I've got and everything, it's not free. I spend a lot of time recording stuff, so at some point that'll be an option. And I'll create special rewards and different things. But with clothing, I think there's a real unique chance that those rewards that you can create from the different tiers of how much you basically, for people who aren't familiar with Patreon, you'll have like tiers. So say the bottom tier might be like a couple of pound a month, then you'll have £5 a month and £10 a month, and then you'll have like some higher tiers that you can set, I think, as many or as little as you want. And then with each tier, you'll get a reward. So, for just because I'm the most familiar with it. So from a podcasting point of view, at the bottom tier, you might get like a free question and answer podcast where if you're a member of that tier, you can, send in unlimited questions, to watch a podcast and take part in whatever that only you are able to if you're on that tier. And then, you up it and you might have on the slightly higher one, you might have a t-shirt if you've been there supporting it for 3 months or something. You get the picture. Whereas I guess clothing, there's so many unique ways to reward the supporters that it's almost never ending, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, you can start to tier it towards groups of guys. I mean, I mentioned the Antwerp lads and the Lazio guys and all that. They could literally have stuff for their club. It becomes something for them. It's their exclusive thing if they're supported through things like Patreon. I just think things like that, when having been so long in business and seeing the way that nowadays the whole thing is corporate. I mean, it's a garment industry or fashion industry. So the word industry at the end of it means that you're always going to attract corporate investment, but then they take hold of it and they water it down. It happened to Osti. That's why he kept moving from CP Stoney. That's why he moved on to left hand, because he wanted to do things that were of value. In those days, there wasn't Patreon and things like that available, Kickstarter, crowdfunding, all those things. But to actually keep it within there and reward the people that like it, as you were saying before, guys, they want to be there from the start and they want to see it develop. You can reward through tiers and create different levels of excitement and interest and do something really special. I mean, for a podcast, I could see it working as well, because then it's, rather than having to go through some kind of corporate radio station and suddenly they're setting the rules for you. It works the same. It works the same with clothing. Rather than it going to someone and then everyone just gets what's left at the end, what goes to retail, it means they start to shape it. I mean, design, you can't do design by committee because everyone's going to have their own experience.
Of course,
and some people aren't really bothered. They just want to buy something that they like at the end. But if you get them involved in the process of engineering something, I mean, you touched on the PW7 pocket. It's a really, really good idea to start to bring that kind of engineering into people and show them why it does what it does. The amount of times that you design a collection and by the time it goes to sale, the story that you created for something just gets lost. Why you did that, why you've done a particular neck on the t-shirt, a pocket. We always had that with the torch on the Maelstrom jacket. Funnily enough, at one time, the old Bill came into the offices there and were like, football lads grab this. That could be used as a kosh, don't it?
Yeah.
Well, it can also be used as a torch and lit it at the same time. That's what it is. You can use anything as a kosh. To be fair to them, they just laughed at them like that, fair point.
Yeah.
You're creating something really for people that have got something a little bit unique, and they're a part of it, and it's a part of their story, and they're a part of the brand story, and they stay on board with it. But like you say, you'll get brand loyalty. People will go back to the same thing, and especially if they're a part of it, and they're seeing how garments are built. I mean, it's wonderful when you go online and see. You can go on YouTube and look at Carlo Rivetti taking you around the Stone Island labs and things. That's
special.
Like porn, really. That you kind of looking at something and thinking, wow, 5 minutes in there. I want to create an actual lab experience to engineer products. I'm in the workshop at the moment. This is the workshop as it is. But to be able to let people in there, to be able to let all the guys, those fans and that of the brand, be able to see a bit what goes into it and to be a part of it. Like you were saying, rewards with names inside jackets and things like that different tiering. But even just supporting it, get pin badges and things, you're a part of the VIP club, really.
Yeah.
You're a part of the brand. You become a part of it. So I think that some of the new ways of actually making a business happen, what they've called bedroom startups and things, making stuff like that happen. Musicians who just put themselves out on YouTube.
Yes.
And then they can bypass the big corporations. They can bypass all the big music industry and just start to make their own music.
Produce it yourself, yeah.
And it becomes more personal. It's tailored to people, and that for me is a good way of addressing business now. I hope on the other side of all this COVID, unfortunately, businesses are going to go under, and I don't think we've seen the start of it. That's a way of making sure that the guys that are interested in the product, they're the ones that are actually part of it being built, and they become a stakeholder in it. The stakeholder is a good expression for it, I think. And you just keep it away from corporations. Stop it having to make X amount of money to pay those guys back. You're rewarded on it, and you're making sure that those garments happen if you're excited and interested in it. It's making sure that the label can actually move up and be a little bit more. So that's the area that I'm kind of building at the same time as designing the product. That's where I want to really be able to take it, because I said it before, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but it's a huge undertaking to do it. I've been doing it for donkey's years. The reason why everyone doesn't have their own clothing label is because it's just the amount that you need to do to put into it to make that collection happen. It's too much for most people. It's daunting.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have, no matter what you do, but when you're trying to create something like a brand in clothing or anything else, it's important to have a good team of whether those people are working alongside you on the actual brand, but also it's about having the right support around you. And, just like you mentioned, Lorenzo, the team, it was Massimo, you said, wasn't it, who was more of a graphic designer, but he brought in a team of people who created something truly special. And I think that says everything which I was trying to say about having the right people in the right places, doing the right things, do what you're good at, and leave other people to do the things they're good at, but all working together and on the same things towards the same goals. And yeah, it's never ending, isn't it? Like with YouTube and social media, you can create these like little behind the scenes clips, like you mentioned, of the workshop, and like for instance the PW7 Pocket. You can do like a minute long video, which will just show the inner workings of it, or you could do a 5 minute video, showing it being created, and that's
One of the things I said to all of this, I want to cut the patterns for this. I want to make it happen. So being able to see that process of it being drawn out on paper, the geometrics of it, and then what it becomes once it goes into fabric, how it functions, how it works, how we built it, what the idea is behind it. I want to be able to do that because then it stays in your control. Most people send in someone else's garment over to a factory, say base it on this block, this fit, and then it goes on to someone who's on a computerized part, and then they cut it.
Okay.
But it's come from someone else's garment. If you can cut the pattern, you don't need anyone else's garment. You cut it from scratch. That's it. It becomes something that it's almost
something that you've created, isn't it?
Yeah. It's important to be able to pick up on the legacy that's been left by people like Massimo, and the legacy that's still ongoing with people like Stolomate, CP, and then build on it and create a legacy as well for what Awayday Apparel's about, and to make sure that all the guys that are everyone that's across Europe, across the world. I mean, obviously the market for America and China, where football's started to take off now, and they're starting to understand the culture behind it as well, not just the game.
Particularly in America, they are, aren't they? It's slowly getting there.
It took a while. At the time of Master, we tried to take that into the US at the time. They didn't understand it. It was all still like pulling up outside the ground and having barbecues out the back. They didn't really understand that when your club's playing another club, there's a rivalry there. But outside of it, we're all in it for the same thing. Everyone's enjoying the same thing. You've all got your own club. You've got your own colours that you're wearing. But the actual culture around it's just universal. We're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is, Alan's already started it with the website, with the shop, and actually having the rogues gallery there. So you've got a group of lads all from different clubs from all over the place, all buying into the brand because it speaks to them. To them about what they're interested in, what they're passionate about. And it's being able to take it to the next stage where there's garments that they can be passionate about as well. Where they feel like they're a part of that building up. It's not some investment banker somewhere else who had a few quid to put into a brand, and it just so happens that they made some nice stuff. It's where they're a part of it and they're seeing it growing. And like looking at China's the strangest one. I was only out in Guangzhou probably 2 years ago, and starting to see that the guys there were actually asking us about football, and they ask about the culture because they see what they see on the news. So they might see a load of lads in somewhere like Russia and that meeting up in a field and hitting each other over the head with bats, and then all going for a pint afterwards. It's kind of grown much bigger than that. For most people, it's about the clothing.
Yes.
It's about the way you look. It's about sharing ideas. You don't tend to have the same. You've got like friendly rivalry, but nothing. Everyone's sharing the same culture. And I think that's what Awayday Apparel can become. That's what that's the next step really is. The name's there, so there's already a story within that as well. Like I said before, taking words like Awayday and apparel and thinking about what it actually means. This is what you're wearing for Awaydays. Doesn't mean that's the only thing you can wear it for. You wear it down at the pub, but the story's there. That's why it exists. That's why it's actually happening.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Spot on. And speaking of taking things to the next level, Alan, he texted me the other day, very excited that he's having this opportunity next week to appear in a music video, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we're going down there on Saturday. It's the Skinner Brothers.
So yeah, I've heard this the song. Is it called Awaydays, isn't it? The song,
yeah, exactly.
But it's a really good song. I really like it.
I listen to a lot of their stuff, and there's a good mixture of sort of sounds. But those lads as well, the band, they're into the same culture. I mean, you can look on the videos on YouTube, you probably notice the clothing that they're wearing. There's a bit of Sergio in there. It's quite old school, and I think it's fantastic. I'm dying to get involved. So we're going there, going to be a part of the video on Saturday. So there's a few of us going down. Al's coming over towards London. Then we're in Brentford, so that's where it's all going to be taking place. But we're going there this weekend.
So yeah, there the music video for the Skinner Brothers single "Awaydays," featuring Awayday Apparel, which is so much perfect, and it's like too perfect.
Make it up, could you? It's all the ingredients are there. I mean, a lot of things. It's always good timing.
Yeah, of course it is, and you need a bit of luck, mate. You need luck. No matter whatever career path you're in, it's you need timing, you need luck to be just meet. And do you know what it is? I think with anything, sometimes it's about meeting the right person at the right time. Not necessarily. It's not always about the job you're doing or what the career path you're necessarily going. It's about someone getting their eyes on what you do just at the right time. So whether it's someone catching, seeing like an Awayday Apparel product or an advert or something that you do or one of my podcasts or just something, someone sees it, they work in broadcast media or they work in clothing designs, and they get in contact and they say, I really like what you're doing, what's your vision for your brand, and it can go off from there. And it is just can sometimes be as simple as that in terms of luck and things like that. But of course you need talent and good looks, which I've got in abundance. No, but you know what I mean. You need like hard work and talent and all this sort of stuff. But so often these things come down to a bit of luck and being in the right place at the right time.
Well, hopefully, when we go for the video, we'll be able to talk to the guys about plans for the brand. I'm enthusiastic about it. They're young lads. I mean, I'm going to have some old git designer coming along there. But it's nice to see that sort of enthusiasm. And they seem to be on the same, although theirs is a musical journey, we're talking about clothing. It's the same thing. They're looking at the same references, the musical references that are the same as ours. And it's nice seeing people try to do something a bit different. And certainly they seem to be exploring a lot of different musical genres. So to see them in Awayday Apparel and be able to be a part of that with a song that seems made for us, an anthem, really.
Yeah.
It's going to be good fun. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting the band as well.
Indeed, I was gonna use that song or a bit of it as the introduction for this show, but I don't want to get a copyright strike on the channel, so I'm gonna have to. Which is the most frustrating thing in the world, because often I just want to use like 20 seconds of a song just as like an intro to the podcast and an outro. And if you do, sometimes you'll be alright, and then other times they'll rip the video down, and it's so much hassle to try and then get it back up. It's like, unfortunately, it's not worth it.
Well, hopefully we'll be back on here again. Maybe we can get them involved in it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I had I had the British indie band The Crooks on probably about 6 months ago, and they've gone on to bigger and better things now. They've been signed to some massive deal in America, but they're very, very good. But I kind of got speaking to the lead singer and on Twitter, and I really liked their single, and I just kind of got to know them through social media, and I was like, come on the show, just all of you come on, play a song at the end. No one else is doing that, like a podcast with the band on and then having them play a song remotely. Like since COVID, like quite a lot of people are doing it, but my claim, I was doing it. I did it first, but it was something different, and people did seem to really like it. It was like they played an acoustic version of She Walks Alone. It was really good. I had a Welsh rapper on as well, which was that was kind of cool, like something just completely different. And again, I said, do you want to do your single at the end. It's a bit more difficult for a rapper, I think, because like with a band, they can just play an acoustic version of their song, whereas the rapper, he had to kind of get his decks out or have his decks ready, but he did it. He did a decent enough job, and I like that variety, and especially these people, like the band, the rapper, the Skinner brothers. I said to Al, I'd love to get them on, because I like getting people on their way up. I like to speak to, and I like not just about getting people on their way up, but I like to shine a light on talented people, and particularly in 2020, when everyone can make their own YouTube channel and make their own music and make their own videos and make their own podcasts, and you can do it all at the touch of a button on your tablet or your phone or your computer. If I do come across like a band or singer or whatever who's quite talented and I can help, even if it's just shine a light on them so a few people from Cardiff know who they are. No, I'm not trying to make out that I've got like these millions and millions of followers, but what I can do is the people who do watch my channel, I can show them, and then if they like it, they'll show their mates, and away we go.
About it really, and trying to so then it branches out into a community where everyone's helping each other out.
Yeah,
that's all you can ask for, really, isn't it? That's what you want. Everyone to try and help each other, show, like you say, if you can showcase talent in any way, that's how it'll all grow. So hopefully we'll be able to come back on here again and bring the lads back along there, or come on with Alan, keep you posted, and we can get the Skinner brothers involved as well. I think it's great seeing all that sort of thing, and like I say, any kind of format that everyone's got for making things happen makes sense to me. I mean, the same for you as well.
Yeah, 100%. I said to, who did I say it to? I can't remember. I said to someone the other day. They said, because I was trying to get them to come on for a podcast, and they said, "Oh well, I'm not very well known. I don't think people will want to listen to me." And I sort of said, "Well, to be honest with you, I'm interested in telling people's stories. I'm not interested in whether they've got like X amount of followers or something. I want to speak to interesting people about their stories and their life and their experiences, and I like doing that."
You see, that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like when you're getting people on there, if it's someone that's already like, you were saying about footballers and a lot of the MMA guys and that they're already in the public domain, so they're a bit used to having a camera and being asked stuff.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to expect on this, so this is the first time, and you always think people aren't going to be interested in hearing that. I mean, there's loads of anecdotes and things, loads of stories I could say about. Hopefully we'll save that for another time, but I don't know if people are. They are, aren't they? I think it's a great format just to be able to say your piece, really, and be able to talk through why you're doing what you're doing, where you've been.
Yeah, what your plans are. And like I said to you before we started, probably 45 minutes to an hour, and I said to you also, once we get talking, it'll be, we'll be off on all sorts of tangents, and here we are an hour and a half later, and I'm kind of going to finish it, not because, I got to finish it, it's more just, right, we're at that sort of hour and a half,
yeah,
and I don't want it to be too long, as opposed to we've run out of things to talk about. But no. So, Adi, are you on social media?
Facebook, Instagram, but I've not really been. I've been a bit slack with social media. It's taken me a while to get my head around it. Don't get involved in Twitter and things like that, but I'll be aiming to get a little bit more involved in that. But Facebook, definitely. I noticed you're on the business one as well, LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. Do you know LinkedIn's done wonders for me in terms of finding guests and stuff, because I found that people are more inclined. Like if I message a footballer or a cricketer or whoever, they'll answer me on LinkedIn. But if I message the same person on Twitter, I don't think they would answer me. It's weird how it works. But it's been a real good tool for me, LinkedIn, as I got to say. What's your Instagram tag? Do you know?
I don't know if I can email it to you anyway. I can send it to you.
Yeah, I'll put Adi's Instagram tags in the description of the episode. Just give him a follow. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Spread the word. We have live shows every Monday, Friday. We also have shows out on a Wednesday and a Sunday. Always new content, new guests, expert analysis, and much more. So join us. Join the revolution, as it were, as we take over the podcasting world in the UK.
Nice one, Si.
But yeah, cheers for joining me, Adi. It's been a good chat. I've enjoyed it. And we'll see. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in and listened. And we'll see you next week.